And lastly, and I leave it lastly to Cuba because it's one that's been more enduring, the problem in Cuba basically is that despite being a communist regime and Marxism not working, is that they've decided, and they thought what they would do is that they would create this holding company. It's called Gaesa. It is a company that they own by the Cuban military, and that holding company owns everything that makes money in Cuba. If it makes money in Cuba, they own it, and it generates revenue for them. The Miami Herald just did an expose on Gaesa. And while you have electrical blackouts and you have all these other problems economically in Cuba, Gaesa is sitting on billions of dollars that they've generated for their permanency. In 2017, the Trump administration sanctioned Gaesa.
Hello brothers and sisters, I really hope you're all doing fine from wherever you're watching me from. Now, it is very shocking to see how the US has been threatening Jamaica. Now, the US is threatening to give sanctions to Jamaican government if they are not going to agree to their policies on how to treat Cubans and how to treat Cuba. So let's watch this video, then have a very quick discussion at the end of it. Thank you so much.
Imagine waking up to the news that your country's top officials are suddenly banned from entering the United States. No explanation, no warning, just revoked visas. Now imagine that this is happening because of a single decision, working with Cuban doctors.
They're known as the Army of White Coats, and their medical teams have been dispatched from Havana to help at least 16 countries, including South Africa, Qatar, and Italy.
This is exactly the reality facing CARICOM nations like Jamaica, Trinidad, and others right now. Trump's administration, through Marco Rubio, has issued a chilling threat. Either CARICOM nations cut ties with Cuba's medical program, or risk losing visas for their government officials and their families. But what does this mean for Jamaica? Should Jamaica comply? Or is this just another strong-arm tactic by the US to control the Caribbean? And most importantly, what happens next? Stay locked in as we dive deep into the biggest diplomatic war Jamaica has faced in years. But before we continue, hit that subscribe button because we're bringing you unfiltered facts on the biggest geopolitical moves affecting the Caribbean. The U.S. warning. What was said? On February 25, 2025, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio made an explosive announcement. The United States is expanding its visa restriction policy against anyone involved in Cuba's medical export program. This means government officials, even in Jamaica, who continue to employ Cuban doctors could lose their U.S. visas. And it doesn't stop there. The families of these officials are also being targeted. Rubio claims that Cuba's medical program is a form of forced labor, alleging that the Cuban government is profiting off its own doctors while depriving Cuba itself of medical professionals. The policy also already targeted Venezuelan officials under the same logic, and now the Caribbean is next in line. But here's the real question. If Jamaica continues working with Cuban doctors, could this mean that top government officials, including Prime Minister Andrew Holness, could be blocked from traveling to the U.S.? And even worse, is this just the beginning of America's crackdown on Caribbean nations working with Cuba? Family, over 60% of you watching right now aren't subscribed. If you've made it this far, that means you value these deep dives into Caribbean geopolitics. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. The more we grow, the louder our voices get on issues that truly matter to Jamaica and the Caribbean. Section 2. Why Jamaica needs Cuban doctors. Jamaica heavily relies on Cuban doctors. For decades, Cuba has sent its best medical professionals to help fill gaps in Jamaica's healthcare system. Hundreds of Cuban doctors and nurses work in Jamaican hospitals. They've been critical in handling outbreaks, disasters, and medical crises. During COVID-19, Cuba sent over 400 doctors and nurses to assist Jamaica and other Caribbean nations. Jamaica's healthcare system already struggles with doctor shortages and long wait times, so cutting ties with Cuba would be devastating. But now, with Trump pressuring CARICOM, will Jamaica be forced to abandon Cuban medical aid?
As you know, we have a long-standing relationship with Cuba and the Cuban government, and in the area of medical care. We have the Cuban Eye Care Program. We have over 300 Cuban healthcare professionals who are here already, and they provide significant value to our public health system. And that has been a long-standing tradition. So today, what we are witnessing is a continuation of that friendship and relationship.
Why Trump is targeting Cuba and CARICOM. The real reason behind this U.S. crackdown isn't about protecting Cuban doctors. It's about U.S. influence in the Caribbean. It's about controlling Jamaica's foreign policy. And it's about stopping Cuba from gaining power in the region. For decades, the U.S. has tried to cripple Cuba economically, using embargoes and sanctions. But Cuba's medical program has been a key way for Havana to stay afloat. Trump and Rubio want to cut off this revenue stream by forcing CARICOM nations to abandon Cuba. And here's where it gets even deeper. This isn't just about Cuba. This is about Jamaica's growing relationship with BRICS. Jamaica has been warming up to BRICS nations like China,
the Caribbean, a region known for its breathtaking beauty and vibrant culture. But now, behind the scenes, it's becoming a battleground for international influence. And at the center of this geopolitical tug-of-war is one issue that's set to change the course of diplomacy: Cuban doctors. For years, Cuba's medical missions have provided critical support to struggling healthcare systems in the Caribbean.
The Cuban government, the Cuban people, through Madam Ambassador and the embassy here, have risen to the occasion. They have heard our appeal and they have responded, and we are very, very elated to have.
From Jamaica to Haiti, Cuban doctors have been the lifeline for millions in need of medical care. But now Donald Trump has a new plan.
Our new policy begins with strictly enforcing U.S. law.
One that could push the Caribbean into a difficult corner. His administration is taking a firm stance, targeting nations that continue to hire Cuban doctors. And the message is clear: work with Cuba and you risk facing U.S. sanctions countries like Jamaica, Guyana, and Trinidad.
The United States expanded visa restrictions over Cuba's dispatch of doctors overseas, a program Havana views as a source of influence and revenue, but which has long faced accusations of exploitation.
And Trinidad have long worked with Cuba, benefiting from the expertise of over 10,000 Cuban doctors stationed across the region. But Trump's new policy threatens this partnership, arguing that Cuba uses these medical missions as a means to
Cuba for the further development of the local agricultural sector. And the Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, Mr. Bernard Charles Jr., is here to talk about the potential benefits of this partnership. Morning, sir. All the very best to you and your family.
Morning
for the
to you. Happy New Year to you both.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
I know that we have collaborated with them in medicine. They've built schools here, Jose Martin, Gabi Massio, G.C. Foster. What are we talking about specifically with Cuba now?
It's been 51 years at Cuba, and besides medicine, we've had some collaboration in terms of students learning agricultural science there. And now we are moving into a more strategic partnership. We're looking on learning lessons from all of what we've faced in the last 2 years. The pandemic has taught us that when you have to rely on things being imported from far away, any little disruption in the logistics chain impacts you. It's amplified in how it impacts you locally. Right. We've had our recent issues with animal feed, and that is resounding in terms of an alert to us that we need to start doing things differently. Right. So working with Cuba just makes sense. It is smart, it is sensible. It allows us to enhance our research and development capacity. Plus, we share space. This is our closest neighbor. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about climatic conditions, if it is 90 degrees here, it's 90 degrees there. So it means whatever research they do, whatever research we do, is more likely to be transitional. It can be shared. So sharing in research and development around important things like how do we combat climate change, the negative consequences in terms of agriculture, infusing the climate smart agriculture. What you're using will more than likely work here. Issues around soil degradation, and pest management, disease management. All of these things they are researching and we are researching, and so we can start to have a more strategic way to collaborate, to share outcomes, to exchange human resources, and to see how we can strengthen our capacity to really design the techniques and the technologies that work for us, because we are neighbors, we're partners.
Yeah, you made mention of the research and the exchange of information, human resources, and so on. So, can we expect, for example, a case, a case in St. Thomas, or is it Portland? But either way, more work being done to enhance what's done at case, delivery, and our students going to be going to and from case to Cuba and so on?
I think all of those are great potentials in terms of.
To other news now, help us. A plea this evening from Jamaican medical students studying in Cuba. They're finding it difficult to access basic necessities like toiletries and food. Giovanni Dennis has been speaking with some of the students. Now, we've distorted their voices at their request as they fear backlash.
Like this might look scanty, but there's like a lot of people. A recording by a Jamaican medical student in Cuba showing crowds outside supermarkets waiting for upwards of 6 hours just to check what food items are available.
Most of the times I have to wake up from 2 a.m. in the morning, and I'd have to wait until 9 a.m. to go to a store, as in we'd be waiting outside, even during the pandemic, and like we sneak outside during curfew hours, and we're hidden in bushes and stuff like that, waiting for the store to be open.
They've risked sending us these short videos demonstrating their plight and challenge in accessing necessities.
The lack of medication, the lack of supplies, such as sanitary napkins or pads, lotion, soap, shampoo, those necessities. And when I speak of the lack of food supplies, we're talking about basic things that we could have found back home, they're not here. So like your tin food, when chicken is scarce.
They've shared one of several letters they say they've written to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs seeking help. They say they've also reached out to the scholarship department in the Ministry of Finance.
We're not getting any assistance from the government or from our embassy here in terms of getting the items from Jamaica to Cuba. Our parents have done all that they can do in terms of buying items, packaging the items, and having the items shipped to us. They even found a shipping company, paid all the charges and everything, which is very, very costly.
The parents will dig wherever and borrow from wherever and find wherever to pay for everything, just for them to just do the documentation that only they have the power to do. Just as Guyana, St. Lucia, Dominica, Suriname, Belize, and I can go on and give all the countries that have sent in several packages in the country. And even more of a now when things easier, when they can get this duty-free or whatever, because Cuba relaxed restrictions.
The students insist they are grateful to the government of Cuba because they tried to make the best of a difficult economic situation. They also say the Jamaican ambassador in Cuba is currently helping with clearing one shipment for a small group of the more than 150 struggling Jamaican students. But they feel disheartened and alone, especially seeing other countries like Guyana helping their students.
I can't even begin to express how I'm feeling. We've been trying for over a year now, more than a year to get stuff here. And it's not a case that it's not possible. It is more than possible. Today I helped the St. Lucians take off their barrel off the truck. That ship passed through Jamaica. Can you imagine over 80 students or more? Everybody get a barrel. We've been trying, we've tried.
The students we spoke with are beneficiaries of the Jamaica-Cuba Bilateral Medical Scholarship Program. Our news team has reached out to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for a response, but there has been no reply to an email sent on Monday. Calls to the minister's phone went unanswered. We've also written to the Finance Ministry. Giovanni Dennis, TVJ News.
Jamaica continues to grapple with undocumented people arriving on its shores by sea. This time, it's Cuban immigrants who indicated they fled their homeland because of the hardship. There have been repeated blackouts in Cuba after its electricity grid collapsed. The situation was worsened by Hurricane Oscar. Zone 1 Commander for St. James, Assistant Superintendent Roderick Reed, gave our news team this update on those who entered Jamaica illegally.
These individuals were intercepted by the police along the Unity Hall main road and they were taken into custody. From all indications, these persons entered the space illegally.
Assistant Superintendent Reed said they were again alerted on Sunday about a second set of Cubans.
Where another vessel with 3 Cuban nationals also entered the Jamaica space, and this is at the Half Moon Hotel. Now, all 10 Cuban nationals are currently in custody at the Montego Bay Police Station, where they are being processed by both the police and our external partners, PICA and Immigration.
Based on preliminary investigations,
they were at sea for the past 3 days, and these set that entered at the hotel at Half Moon, they were facilitated by the hotel staff, where they were entitled to meals, they were given showers.
Nurses, 46 medical practitioners and 4 therapists. They will be deployed right across Jamaica to help in this fight against COVID-19. The nurses, they consist of critical care nurses, we have emergency nurses, we have medical surgical nurses, so they are well equipped to take care of all the different issues that should be coming forth as it relates to COVID-19.
As you know, we have a long-standing relationship with Cuba and the Cuban government, and in the area of medical care. We have the Cuban eye care program. We have over 300 Cuban healthcare professionals who are here already, and they provide significant value to our public health system. And that has been a long-standing tradition. So today, what we are witnessing is a continuation of that friendship and relationship. And in the time of crisis, this emergency that we have, COVID-19, the Cuban government, the Cuban people, through Madam Ambassador and the embassy here, have risen to the occasion. They have heard our appeal and they have responded. And we are very, very elated to have today these 140 members of the medical fraternity coming in from Cuba. We know it's a challenging time for us, as it is for the world, but our friendship with the Cuban people has been strong in the area of healthcare. You have continued to give really important support to us, and you are so welcome now because of all the challenges that we are facing. Okay, so thank you very much. So you are going to be processed at immigration, and then you're going to relax. 14 days. And we're going to ensure that you have all that you need to relax. After those 14 days, then you're going to work. I have a world-class team, I must tell you, in terms of the public health personnel, the leadership, because we anticipated that the day would come when we would need these persons from early in the day. I mean, as far back as a month and a half or more ago. So in the planning stages, we had made contact with our friends in Cuba through the embassy here, and we developed a contingency by assessing what we think we would need or how many persons, different categories, and made the request very early, engaged in the recruitment and selection. And so, in a sense, we have arrived at the appropriate time. And, you know, I have to give credit to the team, the permanent secretary, the chief medical officer, the chief nurse, and others who have really made this possible through forward planning, through forecasting, and in anticipation of what we have to deal with. There will be quarantine for 14 days, as is the protocol, after which we will give them a very warm welcome, and then they'll be deployed in various capacities to ensure that the front line is bolstered and strengthened to deal with the eventuality that we will have to confront. And that, I hope, will therefore minimize the impact, help us to overcome the challenges quickly, and by extension, therefore, to recover. It's all part of flattening the curve, trying to deal with the situation quickly
brothers and sisters, you might be asking yourself questions that why is the US threatening Jamaica, and why is the US so obsessed with whatever is happening in the Caribbean and in Africa? Now, the US has actually threatened to give sanctions. This includes denying visa to Jamaicans who want to travel to their country if they are not going to treat Cuba. I don't know, not allowing Cuba doctors to work in their hospitals and all this stuff. And I'm asking myself, how independent is the Caribbean countries? How independent is Africa? How independent is our own countries if we are not going to do whatever it takes to make our countries great? If the US is going to be there to dictate to us on who to relate with and how to do it, and on who to allow to our countries and who we should not, how are we going to make our countries great? It is in the recent days that the US was so upset with the fact that Jamaica is working with China and Russia. And for this case, the Jamaican government being led by Donald Trump, they were to give sanction to Jamaica government, and they were going to give tariff for the goods from Jamaica to the US, and for any other goods leaving the US to Jamaica, they were going to be highly taxed. And this is one of the things that we talk about. This is one of the things that we need to address, because the last time I checked, so many countries in the Caribbean are still under the leadership of Spain. Now, many countries still today in the Caribbean, many black-dominated countries in the Caribbean are still using the culture of Spain, you see, speaking Spanish and all this other stuff. And you really ask yourself, where is the independence of black folks? Where is the independence of the Caribbean? Where is the independence of the African diaspora? And where is the independence of Africa as a continent? Because if our countries cannot do whatever it takes to keep them going, if our countries still have no power to do things on their own, that they have to consult from Donald Trump, that they have to consult from Emmanuel Macron, that Emmanuel Macron can wake up in the morning and feel like, I need to call all these leaders to convene here in Paris because I want to tell them whatever I think. And he does exactly that. And our leaders will have no option than to run to Paris and hear whatever Macron is saying to them, or go and get lectured in the White House. So if we are not going to stand by our own, if we are not going to unite these countries for the betterment and for the better of our own countries, we are going to suffer the more. Because if the Caribbean countries cannot speak in one language, if Haitians and Jamaicans still throwing words at each other, if these governments are not going to sit down and show unity to its people, we still are going to have a big problem. Because the last time I checked, the problems being experienced in the Caribbean are almost the same problems in Africa. The same problems in Africa, for real. So there is need for us to sit down. There is need for us to discuss on how our continent, on how our regions are going to be better. Now, I was asking myself some questions. Why is it that Africa is so close to the Caribbean, but we have to spend 20 hours going to the Caribbean when we can have a 6-hour flight to the Caribbean from Africa? So there is some serious questions that need to be asked, because if someone is traveling from Ghana and is moving to the Caribbean, to Jamaica, to Dominican Republic, and to all these countries in the Caribbean, let's say Barbados, St. Kitts, and all these other countries, that you have to spend 6 hours just from moving from Ghana to these Caribbean countries. But that's not whatever it is, because we still lack a direct airline that connects Africa to the Caribbean. And this is a question that has been in place. What are our leaders doing to make sure that Africa connects with their brothers and sisters on the other side? Because the last time I checked, the Caribbean is dominated by our black folks. Those who came from Nigeria, those who came from Ghana, those who came from Mali, those who came from Burkina, they are all in the Caribbean. Those who are tired with the US migrated to the Caribbean. So what is really not happening? Our leaders have been pocketed and they have been given some money and they have sold their conscience to the Western countries, in that they have never thought of that. They do not want to think of that because it is very much possible. Why should you pass through the US when going to Jamaica? Why should you pass through the US when going to Barbados, while going to all these other countries that are connected with Africa in a way? The culture of Jamaica, the culture of the Caribbean is the same culture of Africa. So there is need for us as black folks to come together and speak out how these things are going to work. And if we still sit ourselves down and get so much relaxed in that we do not want to speak about these things, there is no one coming to save us. Jamaicans, it is time you save your own country. Africans, it's the same to you. It applies to you the same way. And to the African diaspora, it's the time also to connect with their motherland and see how things are going to work out. Because if we continue in the same way, we are really going to have a problem. We've heard crazy things happening, and if we are not going to sit ourselves down and speak about how things are going to work out for us, we are really going to be in a big problem. Let's agree and let's accept the reality. The reality is that we are much divided. The countries in the Caribbean are not speaking the same language. The countries in Africa are much divided. And if the Caribbean countries all manage to come together and have a caucus which will bring them together with their leadership, it is not a must for every country in the island, in the Caribbean, to have a prime minister or whatever. They can merge and have one leadership to be one strong Caribbean. And if they are still going to be disunited, if they are still going to be in this division that is still happening, this is when the US will get in, China will get in, and it is going to be a mess. The respect that the people of Jamaica want for their country will only come if they're united and if they have chosen that path to talk the truth. Do not get upset by someone saying the truth about your country. Do not get upset when someone is trying to get you on the line. Africa is a mess. We continue saying that Africa is a mess. The Caribbean is a mess too. And the African diaspora needs to get to be united. If they still have to live in the same division that they have had in the longest time, they are going to have problems. Police brutality is still going to be a challenge. Social injustices are still going to be a challenge. And if we can get ourselves down, Africa continent, the Caribbean, the African diaspora gets together, unite, we are going to have a more powerful pact. And we can also go to the negotiation table with them and tell them, we are not going to allow you to exploit our mineral resources. Instead, we can do business. How about we mine our own mineral resources, we refine them, then we sell them to you as products. Then the monies you give to us help us run our economy. Because the last time I checked, it is only Burkina Faso that do not have a national debt that belongs to France, either France, the IMF, the World Bank, and the US. That all these African countries either have national debts that come from China, Russia, IMF, World Bank, the US, Russia, and all these other countries. And these debts are very taken in a very malicious way, because these debts are taken, then the monies are being misused by the politicians. Then the people who have not benefited from these debts are expected to pay whatever they didn't even use. They're expected to pay for something they have never benefited from. So it is a time we hold our own leaders to account. We hold our own people. Let's hold these offices that we have in our own countries to account, because we elected these people. Then if we actually have no channel to talk to them directly, then it means we've lost contact with them. And the only way to reconnect with the people or with the electorate is, one, by telling them the truth of whatever is happening. If these governments are being run in a very malicious way, and you came in power, found the same thing, so it is time to change it. Talk to your people, tell them whatever is happening, discuss with them, and everything is going to be fine. The people of Jamaica, the people in the Caribbean, the people in Africa should unite themselves, speak one language, stop hating the truth. The truth will save you, and it is going to save your country, because some people, you have to tell them the truth. They will deny it, but the truth still stands. So thank you so much for having taken the time to watch this video. Brothers and sisters, I appreciate so much. If it's your first time on the channel, please, you can subscribe to the channel in a very special way. You can be a member of this channel. If it's your first time again, you can also hit the subscription button, like, comment, share this video. And if you are a returning subscriber, I say thanks to you. Continue watching this channel, and let's support whatever is happening in the motherland. Thank you so much.